Manchester United's captain had a door open to leave this summer, and he chose to stay shut inside Old Trafford instead. But that's only the beginning of what's actually going on right now. That captain is Bruno Fernandes. Here's what's actually been happening behind the scenes, and it's more layered than most fans realise. According to Fabrizio Romano, Manchester United offered Bruno a new deal all the way back in May. Think about that timeline for a second. This isn't a rushed, panicked response to interest from elsewhere. This is a club that moved early, months ago, to try and get their captain locked down before speculation even had a chance to build. And here's the thing, talks with his camp are still ongoing right now. Not finished, not collapsed, ongoing. Which tells you two things at once. United are serious about getting this done, but it also hasn't been simple enough to wrap up quickly either.
Through all of that, United have made one thing very clear. They insist on Bruno staying, despite calls coming in from Galatasaray and other European clubs back in June and July. Calls, plural, from multiple clubs about United's own captain, their talisman, the man who's carried so much of this team on his shoulders for years. And United's answer from the very start has been the same, every single time. He's not going anywhere. But then, according to Ben Jacobs, this story goes even deeper than a simple contract renewal, because Bruno's release clause, the one that used to sit at 65 million euros, has now expired.
Think about what that actually means. There is currently no set number that triggers an automatic exit, no shortcut, no release clause a club can simply meet and force United's hand. Which means if any club wants Bruno Fernandes, they're not buying him off a price list anymore. They're negotiating with a club that has already decided he's not for sale at any price. And Galatasaray, they're reportedly prepared to offer around 50 million euros. On top of that, they're ready to hand Bruno a lucrative 4-year contract. Sounds tempting on paper, doesn't it? A huge financial package, a fresh start somewhere new, a club clearly building their entire approach around convincing him. But here's the twist that changes everything. No bid has actually arrived yet, and United sources have made themselves crystal clear. If one does land, it gets rejected.
So let's be completely honest about where this actually stands, because it's easy to get swept up in speculation. Fernandes has not indicated to Manchester United at any point that he wants to leave. The club, meanwhile, are not even looking to engage with any club over a potential sale. That's not a captain being quietly pushed toward the exit door. That's a club drawing a hard line in permanent marker, and a player who hasn't even asked to cross it. But that's not even the biggest loyalty story developing at Old Trafford right now. Because meanwhile, there's another player quietly turning down chances to leave, and honestly, this one might be even more telling. Marcus Rashford.
Rashford has had 3 separate opportunities to leave Manchester United for other Premier League clubs already this window. 3. Not one offer that got politely declined. 3 genuine chances from within his own league to walk into a different dressing room. And every single time, his answer has been the same. His sole focus is on United. There is no intention from his side of pursuing a Premier League move. Not as it stands. Stop and think about what that actually represents. This is a player who's had his fair share of noise around his future over the past couple of years. And now, with real, tangible Premier League interest on the table, he's turning it down, repeatedly. 2 of United's biggest names, Bruno and Rashford, both wanted elsewhere, both choosing to stay. That's not a coincidence. That's a message being sent, whether United planned it that way or not. But hold on, because while United are fighting to keep their own players settled and committed, they're also making bold, aggressive moves in a completely different direction. Manchester United have made an offer for Barcelona midfielder Gavi. £34 million plus £13 million in add-ons. Let that number sink in properly. This isn't a soft inquiry. This isn't United testing the water to see how Barcelona react. This is a concrete, structured offer on the table for one of the most talked about young midfielders in world football. A player who came through La Masia, a player who's already represented Spain at the highest level, and Michael Carrick wants him. Not just likes him, wants him.
Think about the timing here too, because context matters. While the club is busy locking down Bruno's future and watching Rashford turn away suitor after suitor, they're simultaneously pushing forward with an ambitious, expensive move for a Barcelona academy product. That's not a club playing it safe. That's not a club sitting back and protecting what they've got. That's a club actively trying to build something bigger on multiple fronts at the same time. However, here's where the story pulls back just a little, and it's worth hearing this part too, because according to Romano, the midfield market for United may ultimately depend on market opportunities. If no good opportunity arises, United will simply stick with the current squad. So the Gavi bid is real, it's genuine, it's on the table, but it's not desperation. United aren't going to force a deal that doesn't make sense just because they've already put a number forward. If it happens on their terms, with the right structure and the right value. If it doesn't come together, they're not going to panic and overpay just to force it through either. But that's only half the story on the midfield front, because there's another name being funded through a very specific, very calculated plan that shows exactly how United's transfer strategy actually works behind the scenes. Manchester United are reportedly ready to cash in on academy graduate Harry Amass in order to fund a move for Newcastle left-back Lewis Hall. Think about that structure for a second, because it tells you a lot about the club's approach right now. This isn't United throwing money at every position at once, hoping something sticks. This is a club identifying a player who can realistically be sold and using that exact money to go and get a specific target they've clearly wanted for a while. Amass out, Hall potentially in, a direct, connected plan. That's calculated business. That's a club being strategic and disciplined about where the funds actually come from, rather than just spending freely across every position without a plan. And it tells you exactly how seriously United are still taking that left-back situation, even with other names like Salinas and Lewis Skelly floating around in the background too. Now, hold that thought, because there's one more story developing, and this one comes with a genuine what-if attached to it, one that could completely change United's summer if the pieces fall a certain way. Rafael Leao. Here's the update. AC Milan have rejected a €35 million bid from Galatasaray for Leao. Milan still rate him extremely highly, and they're said to value him at around €50 million. That in itself tells you Milan aren't desperate to sell. They're holding their ground, just like United are holding theirs on Bruno. But here's where it gets genuinely interesting for United specifically. Reports suggest United could emerge as contenders for Leao if Marcus Rashford departs before the transfer window closes. Remember what we just talked about only a few minutes ago. Rashford has turned down 3 Premier League moves already. He says his focus is entirely on United. So right now, today, this Leao link is exactly that, a link, contingent on something that doesn't currently look likely to happen based on everything we know about Rashford's mindset. But here's the twist that makes this worth watching closely anyway. Leao has been linked with United numerous times in the past, going back years at this point. Those links could easily resurface again if Rashford's situation ever changes, even slightly. And there's another layer to this story too, one that adds a strange, almost poetic twist to the whole thing. Ruben Amorim, United's former manager, is now in charge at Milan. He may end up being the one who has to sell one of his prized assets to raise funds. Think about that. A former United boss, potentially forced to sell a player to the very club he used to manage, possibly even to fund other business at his new club. If that scenario ever plays out, that's not just a transfer story anymore. That's a genuinely dramatic subplot on its own. So let's bring all of this together, because every single one of these updates is connected by the same underlying thread, even if it doesn't look that way at first glance. United are protecting what they already have. Bruno's release clause has expired, But instead of that creating vulnerability, United have used it as an opportunity to draw an even harder line than before. No sale, at any price, regardless of who comes calling with however tempting a package. Rashford has already said no to 3 different clubs, proving the exact same loyalty from a completely different angle.
But protecting the squad doesn't mean standing still, and that's the key point here, because at the same time, United have gone out and made a genuine, concrete, structured offer for Gavi, showing real ambition even while their captain's situation and their forwards' future dominate every headline. And on top of that, they're working a specific funded plan to solve the left-back problem, using Amass's sale to directly go and get Lewis Hall, rather than just hoping the money appears from nowhere. And then there's Leao, sitting quietly in the background right now. Not an active story yet, not something to get carried away with today, but one that could suddenly become very real, very fast, if Rashford's stance ever shifts even slightly between now and deadline day. That's what makes these final weeks of the window so genuinely important to watch closely. Every single piece here depends on the next one. If Bruno signs that new deal, that's one door firmly closed for good. If the Gavi opportunity develops the way United want it to, that's a real statement of intent about where this club is heading. If Amass moves on and Hall arrives at Old Trafford, that's the left-back problem finally solved. And if, somehow, Rashford's situation changes down the line, suddenly Leao becomes a conversation United actually have to sit down and have. So here's what I want to know from you, and I want real answers in the comments. Should United go all out to get Bruno's new deal signed and finished as quickly as possible? Would you want United to push harder for Gavi right now, or stay patient like Romano is suggesting they should? And if Rashford ever did decide to leave down the line, would you actually want United chasing Rafael Leao as his replacement, especially with Amorim potentially on the other side of that deal? Drop your thoughts below, all of them. If you enjoyed today's update, don't forget to like, subscribe to Red Break and turn on notifications for more Manchester United news.